Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Thanks for taking some time to join us for today's webinar. My name is Scott Dill with Real Story Group, and as you see, my colleague Jared Jingers is here as well. He's going to take us through the heart of today's presentation, but I wanted to just kick things off with a couple of quick housekeeping items of note, and then just take you a little bit behind the scenes about Real Story Group as we look to get started here to discuss your journey to DAM 3.0. One thing that to keep in mind is that you will get a copy of these slides in the next couple of days, and then for our customers on the line, you'll also be able to access a recording of today's session in your subscriber library. So keep an eye out for that within the next couple of days. We should have some time for questions at the end as well. So if you have questions or feedback or any stories you want to share, you can enter those into the questions tab in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll do our best to get to those at the end of today's session. If not, we'll certainly reach back out to you after today's webinar to get to the answers that you're looking for. Just to give you a little bit of background on Real Story Group, we've actually been at this for almost 20 years now, and you'll see on this slide, we've poken a little fun at some of our analyst brethren out there. As you know, we as an analyst firm, one thing that really sets us apart is that we never work for or advise the vendors we cover within our research. So we don't speak at their conferences, we don't write white papers for them or provide them any sort of quid pro quo when it comes to any favorable reviews in our research if they subscribe or anything like that. Our focus is on technology, users, and buyers, and providing you with the real story about what these vendors do well, but maybe more importantly, what they don't do so well, where they could potentially fall short for you as a DAM vendor. So certainly something to keep in mind if you're new to Real Story Group and what you're looking to do as you move forward. Another thing that I want you to have in the back of your mind as you're going through today's presentation is there's three key ways in which we work with our customers. First and foremost, we have our vendor selection advisor, where you can access one or potentially a number of research areas. So today, for example, we'll focus on DAM technology. So if you're looking to evaluate DAM vendor for the first time, or perhaps have a DAM vendor in place and you're looking to compare your incumbent provider to some marketplace alternatives, you can leverage our research and our advisory services in that particular area. We can also provide you some guidance around your full martech or omnichannel technology stack, and in this case you'd have access to all of our research along with a set number of advisory hours to really provide more of a holistic view of your technology stack as you're looking to make those important decisions moving down the road. And then finally, we've over the past 18 months or so developed a stack leadership council, where 3 to 4 times a year we get together, and really it's a network of tech stack leaders from organizations around the world that are sharing their stories, what's working well, what's not working well, what are some best practices, and providing some additional dirt on the vendors that they find in the research, but they're also having within their own experiences as well. So we can certainly talk with you more about these different options, and something to keep in mind here as you're listening to Jared's presentation today. So I'm going to kick things over to him, and Jared's going to talk you through your journey to DAM 3.0. Jared?
Hey, thanks, Scott, and thank you all for spending a few minutes with you out of your busy schedules. It's great to see so many subscribers on the line and a whole bunch of new people as well. So thank you for taking some time today. We appreciate it as always. So I have a bit of a confession to make. I honestly was a bit squeamish when I was coming up with this presentation, talking about the various phases of DAM. Probably like all of you, I think I have a bit of phase fatigue. In this world of this pandemic and this quarantine, I think every state in the United States and every country in the world is on a different phase of reopening, and we get to one phase and we roll back to another phase, and it seems like this never-ending journey. And so I ask you all to please just bear with me a little bit here as I use this analogy to talk about a technical marketplace, because at the end of the day, I think this phased approach is really apt when we talk about a technical marketplace. Just a week ago, my colleague Tony gave a presentation around the customer data platform marketplace, and he was talking about CDP 1.0 and CDP 2.0, but there was no notion of 3.0 because that marketplace is so immature that many enterprises are just getting started and having a bunch of fits and starts, to be honest, and there are a lot of companies are struggling to get to 2.0 in that marketplace. But that's where it gets interesting for the DAM world, because digital asset management is a marketplace that is, in my opinion, fairly mature. For over a decade now, companies have been investing in DAM, and different organizations have progressed to different points, and some are really pushing the envelope at what I'll call a 3.0 level. Now, that's not to say you're doing anything wrong if you're in 2.0 or in 1.0 or at 0.0 and just looking to get started. So, but we get calls from organizations every day talking about DAM, right? We get asked to come in and do assessments of their current DAM, or helping them pick a DAM for the first time or a DAM for the 5th time. And one of the first things that I do when I'm talking to these potential clients is really make an assessment of where they are in their journey. And so as part of that, we put this rubric in place that I want to introduce to you today around what are the characteristics of a DAM 1.0 organization, a DAM 2.0 organization, and a 3.0 organization. And I think this rubric can help you do some self-assessment as in trying to figure out where you stand, but also potentially serve as a roadmap for the future. Many organizations, I'd say it's rare that an organization jumps right to 3.0. I haven't seen one yet do that yet, but to get to 3.0, you have to go through the 1.0 and 2.0 steps. So this should be helpful if you're on that journey. Okay. So without further ado, let's jump into each of these phases. So we'll start, obviously, with 1.0. DAM 1.0 is something that I would categorize or characterize, if you will, as a standalone library. In that world, you have a single repository for managing images, video, audio files through a lifecycle. Now, in many cases, for many organizations, this is just a much improved step, but a single step nonetheless from a bunch of shared drives or cloud sharing platforms across the organization. In most cases, in 1.0, your DAM is, again, a standalone system that is probably disconnected or mostly disconnected from your other systems in your organization. And really what you create when you do DAM 1.0 is another destination for your employees to go to store and retrieve assets, right? Pretty simple. But we get calls every day from organizations who are still in a 0.0 phase, or maybe even, I'll give them some credit, a 0.1, because at least you've admitted to the problem. You need a DAM. These organizations are characterized by the fact that they have files everywhere and assets everywhere. Those assets live on desktops, on laptops, and tablets. They're on your phones, in your emails, in your instant messaging tools. I'm sure many of you have the common D drives, E drives, F drives, Z drives. You have your SharePoint system, you have other collaboration tools, you have document management tools, you have applications, and of course you have the cloud. And you probably have multiple clouds. You probably have Box, you probably have Dropbox, you might have something from Adobe, you might have something from Google, you might have some other third-party tool that is completely bespoke from the rest of the world. But the point here is that the promise of a DAM is to help unify this to a single source where you can manage an asset through a life cycle. Now, here's a very simplistic view of what that life cycle could be, but in most cases, you're creating a library that allows you to ingest assets, in a secure way. You're storing them, you're transforming them, you're enriching them, you're probably making relationships between those assets, all for the purpose of being able to help the next person come around and find them and do something with it. All the way through to an end of life cycle, whether that's permanent storage or archival or deletion in some cases. Not many. Most DAM people like to keep everything. But that's okay. That's 1.0. But the challenge with DAM 1.0 Well, it definitely serves a purpose. It is that single place to go and find assets, which is a huge win for many organizations. But for others, what you've done in some cases is just create another silo, right? And this is indicative of many organizations who went out and procured different content technologies to solve very specific content challenges. So I know many of you have enterprise content management systems or document management systems that you went out and procured to store your office docs, or very specific kind of document that is indicative of your business, and you store it all in a document management system. I know many of you have some bloated web content management systems that have a ton of content and even some images and video, and that is whose sole purpose is to publish to your websites or your mobile apps. And that's okay, but it's tough to get them out of those systems. And then many of you have marketing automation tools or email publishing tools and social publishing tools that you use to store email content and segments and very email specific analytics. And so again, nothing wrong with this, but it's a very siloed approach. And that might be okay for you at where you are now, but people are talking about wanting to create a more omni-channel experience for your customers and your constituents and your clients. When you start to get really serious about omni-channel, that's when this is going to bite you, because it's really hard to break down these silos to create consistent experiences across the board. So that's, on one hand, it's a good start and provides many wins for a lot of people in 1.0, but it can be indicative of some challenges as well. That brings us to DAM 2.0. And quite frankly, this is where I see most larger or mid to large size organizations are falling into 2.0. Not all, some are still in that 1.0 or just getting started phase, but most organizations, I think it's indicative again of this mature market, have progressed to a point where they're thinking in terms of what we call martech, DAM as a martech service. So it took some time for this, to be quite honest. It took some time for DAM to be finally recognized as truly a tool in your martech toolbox. For years, DAM was just the tool of the creatives, and maybe you had some librarians working within it, but it was this, again, that separate place that people would go to find assets, and but it wasn't considered, in your martech toolbox. But that's changed. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It's certainly, if you're in the DAM 2.0 phase, you're not thinking about DAM as that standalone place, but instead it's a critical part of your workflow, whether that's flow of work coming from upstream into the DAM or downstream out of the DAM to a bunch of different touch points. DAM in a martech world is for those in 2.0 is certainly supplying some systems of engagement. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's typically a one-way flow of information. There's little round tripping in the 2.0 world, but it's typically a one-way flow of information, and I'll give you some examples of that. So we always like to use this analogy of the martech mall, and we always say that this is just a reference model of sorts. It's not a one-size-fits-all analogy here, but what it's meant to show is that today's marketers are experimenting with lots of different tools and technologies, but they're not all created equally, right? The most successful organizations are thinking in terms of what are our true anchor stores on which to build our martech foundation, so that we can experiment with technologies of the future that we know about today, and the technologies we know that we don't know about but we know are going to come down the pike in the future. But we can't be swapping out our entire stack. We need to identify the true anchors of our stack and build upon that. And everyone's anchor stores might be slightly different, but in the vast majority of cases of enterprises, and as we sit here in 2020, DAM is an anchor store, because content and assets are so critical to almost every organization that it's really found a place here. But unlike this model, DAM is not just an anchor store that is sitting on its own disconnected. I think where enterprises in the 2.0 phase are really spending a lot of their energy on is making these connections between DAM and in most cases to other systems of engagement. When I say systems of engagement, largely I'm talking about things like web content management technology, so to publish to websites and mobile apps and mobile experiences. We're talking about marketing automation tools, the tools that you use to manage your email and social campaigns. And I'm talking about social engagement tools that in which you're actually engaging in a bunch of social platforms. So in this model, the DAM is the single source, but it's powering all these other systems of engagement where your marketers work. You know, your marketers might work in the web world or the email world or the social world, but hopefully they're pulling from a single source of truth. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not just downstream, it's also upstream. So here's an example from the CPG world where product information and packaging is so critical. You know, in this example, even in the 2.0 phase, we're talking about integrations into the DAM as well as out of the DAM. So you might have product data flowing from your product information management system into your DAM, or we might have package assets flowing from your packaging approval system into your DAM. Or just to take it outside of the CPG realm altogether, almost all of you, I'm sure, have creatives working in your Adobe Creative Suite, where they're working in Photoshop or InDesign or whatnot, and you might want them to be able to upload assets right from those tools right into the DAM without even leaving those creative tools. The problem, though, with 2.0 is that even with these point-to-point integrations, it's still a bit too siloed for a true omni-channel customer experience era. I think this is due to the problem with the way we've set up a lot of our teams internally. You know, many of us have a web team or an email team and a social team, and each of those teams thinks in terms of what their messaging should be, and they go and get assets from the DAM to satisfy those messages. But in an omni-channel world, we need to make sure we have consistent experiences across the board. And so these point-to-point integrations where the DAM is just talking to the web content management system or just talking to the marketing automation system, it's too restricting. And so what happened is because all your messaging has become too channel specific. So that leads us to those enterprises who say, that was a good start, but we need to do something even better. And we're calling this DAM 3.0. And here we're thinking of DAM in a much broader sense. So I want you to think about DAM in this case as not just your traditional images and video assets. I want you to think about managing media, managing text narratives and data all as first-class objects. I want you to think about managing them as singular components that are independent of the channels that they're going to go to. I want you to think about a system that can really enable sophisticated compound relationships between asset pieces to be built into larger assets. Maybe they're just fragments of a website, maybe they're fragments of documents, maybe they're fragments of video that get melded together depending on the experiences you're trying to create. In the 3.0 world, we're also talking about, this is where we get into being able to measure effectiveness, you know, not just at a traditional campaign level, but being able to manage effectiveness at that asset level. You know, can we truly learn about which asset is performing better than another so that we can make a decision the next time we're going to create a new asset and say, hey, we know that this one performed better last time, let's use that one again. Or maybe we even make that programmatic so we can do it at scale. And in this case too, what I'm describing too, where analytics are round tripping from, you know, where your customers are interacting with this content and assets, it's not just a one-way flow of information. Now your analytics are round tripping back. And so that's a powerful concept that certainly didn't exist in 1.0 and exists very rarely in the 2.0 world. But in the 3.0 world, we're seeing this as more and more of a demand. And so what I'm proposing to you is to think about the 3.0 world in a pretty substantially different way than we've traditionally thought about it. And this goes along with a broader theme that we're seeing from enterprise architects and and business leaders across every single one of our larger clients, and in most cases it's the larger clients that are really pushing the envelope here, but they're demanding a different way of storing content, of storing assets, of storing data, and of storing rules for presenting that data, content, and assets to their customers in a way that gives them more flexibility to create omni-channel experiences. So if what I'm showing on the screen now is more that traditional model, what I'm suggesting is you think about what should be your true foundational platforms. What should be your anchor stores below your systems of engagement that can truly power those other systems of engagement. And what I'm suggesting here is to think bigger than just traditional assets. Think about what are the core customer engagement objects that you need to provide your people who are creating experiences in a way that they can do so regardless of the channel that they're delivering it to. So I call your attention to this red box here, this content platform. So the idea is that you're providing a one-stop access to core customer engagement objects to support omni-channel experiences, and this should sit alongside of your customer data platform, which is your one-stop shop for your customer records, and that should sit alongside of your campaign and journey orchestration tools, which is your one-stop shop for the rules that you're providing to say, when should this content be presented to my visitors and my constituents when they come to and hit my channel touch points. And so again, this is a little bit of a different concept for most DAM folks, because traditionally we've talked about DAM in the same way, images and video and audio files. And I still want you to think about that, but broaden your horizons a little bit to think about, are there text and copy snippets that we should be managing? Is there data that we should be managing alongside of those assets? Can we break down calls to action buttons or offers or micro experiences that we could manage in a way that is truly independent of a content channel? And so why do I bring this up in the context of DAM 3.0? Well, there's a lot of different vendors trying to be your omni-channel content platform, or your OCP, if you will. And from where we sit today, we think that the DAM vendors actually have a little bit of a head start over your marketing operations vendors and your web content management vendors and your CRM vendors and a whole bunch of other vendors who are coming to the market trying to solve this problem. DAM vendors have long thought of those images and video and audio assets as first-class objects, and that gives them a bit of a head start. They've built their systems, not all, but some of the DAM vendors have built their systems to support these object-oriented architectures that allow you to manage these complex relationships between content pieces, and that's really, really pivotal to doing this right. So what I would ask you is to start challenging your enterprise architects and your DAM folks to say, is our DAM good enough from where it stands in a 2.0 world, or do we need to think bigger? And then the next logical question is, do we have the right DAM that can serve both these purposes? Can it be my DAM powering my other systems of engagement, and can it be my omni-channel platform as well? And so here's a little bit of a checklist we put together. We don't need to go through all of these things today, but this is something to think about as you evaluate your incumbent technologies and say, is my system object-oriented enough to handle some complex parent-child relationships and maybe some sibling relationships among my content fragments? Is it highly extensible? Can I expand this out across my organization, not just targeting certain channels or groups? Can I treat text and HTML as first-class objects alongside of my traditional DAM assets? Can I track usage and round-trip analytics back to the asset level? So get beyond campaign level tracking and get to the asset level as a storage area. Can I do some tight integrations with my enterprise data services? If there's one trend that we're seeing is content and data are getting closer, because if these are the basic building blocks of experiences, you need to give those tools to your marketers so that they're able to create experiences in really accurate and confident ways. Does your system support multiple taxonomies? As you roll this out across the enterprise, you might need more advanced permission models. All these things are really important to assess your your current DAM's capability to be the 3.0 vendor of your future. And so as we look at the marketplace here in 2020, the DAM world, not all the vendors are taking an approach to build their products to solve this challenge, but a bunch of them are. Excuse me. There's certainly the complex vendors on the left side of this marketplace diagram, this logo landscape as we call it. Those vendors are the ones kind of, I'd say, pushing the rest of the market to solve this problem, and have been trying to do so for quite some time in some cases. It's interesting. I think the buyers have actually caught up to the vendors who were telling this story 5-10 years ago, but the buyers weren't ready, but now they are. So that's an interesting thing. And then it's been so successful that some of the mid-range vendors and even the simpler vendors are starting to move their products in a direction that think bigger than just traditional DAM. So again, not all of them are doing that though. Some are very content to skate their lane and do what they're good at, and that's okay. But I want you, as you begin to assess which product is right for you, to pick a vendor that gets you to the phase that you want to ultimately get to. There might be something that gets you to DAM 1.0 today, and maybe that's all you need to on your roadmap. But if you have intentions to get to 2.0 or 3.0 in the medium or long term, that might really affect your choice. As always, I want you to take a scenario-based approach to assessing your options when it comes to DAM. This is a decision that I'll take it back to my example of our reopening after this global pandemic. Many countries and many states have gotten to a certain phase, but ultimately, because things went wrong, they had to roll back to a previous phase. And that's not unlike what we're seeing in the DAM world. We see people who have all too often gone down the wrong path with the wrong vendor, and as their ambitions advanced to another phase, they realized, hey, we have the wrong vendor here. We need to start over. And that's painful to see when you have to restart this phase all over again. But ultimately, it's the best thing. What you don't want to do is continue to shoehorn the wrong fit vendor to try to get you to 3.0 and beyond, because then you'll be building your own custom system that will be out of date really quickly. So I strongly encourage you to not go down that approach. And so what I really want you to do is do your homework, as always. We've been putting a lot of emphasis on the suitability of these DAM, or assessing the suitability of these DAM vendors to each of these phases as we go through our research, and we've done a lot of recent updates to all of our vendor evaluations. We're evaluating some 30+ DAM vendors today, and we have these tools available to you for you to help. So if you're interested in the real quadrant shortlist generator to see what what vendor should be on your shortlist, give Scott a call or contact Scott, and he'll be happy to give you a demo of what that looks like. Or maybe you want to compare your incumbent vendor versus some marketplace alternatives and see how they stack up in a 3.0 world. The tools are there for you to do that. And then finally, if you want to just assess how effective your team is being and your technology is, and put a stake in the ground, the real score effectiveness model is included in all of our subscriptions. So if that's of interest to you, please feel free to reach out to me or Scott, and we'll be happy to give you a tour. With that said, I welcome connecting with all of you in a variety of different ways. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me via email or Twitter or LinkedIn. Always happy to help where we can. Let's see if we have any questions. All right, so first question is, or it's more of a comment, but it's a familiar one. So Scott's saying, we see a lot of scenarios where there are more than one DAM across the organization. And Scott, you and me both. I think that's due to a lot of different reasons. We see different groups within an enterprise, particularly large organizations, go out and procure their own dam for their own purposes and not even realizing that another dam exists within the organization. Or, as you know, dam is built to solve a lot of different scenarios. So what one group went out and purchased a dam for might not be a good fit for the other group, so they needed another dam, and sometimes that's appropriate. And you're right, even when we look at this omni-channel content platform versus a traditional dam, in many cases we've seen organizations try to figure out how to get that to be one single system, but in some cases it doesn't make sense to be that case. In some cases it makes sense to keep a dam running and have an OCP running as well, and in some cases that might be a dam technology that's powering both of those things. Tracy, the additional complexity added by multiple languages and cultures that need to be supported by a global dam. Yes, global dam is really a challenge, not for every organization, but when we're talking about global organizations, it is always a challenge. And when we start to advance this conversation to 3.0, and I think we talk about, given this repository more exposure to more people, more channels, that problem gets more complicated. Now, I know there's certain countries that have certain regulations that prohibit content being used in certain ways, so that can actually be a tie back to the previous question, where that might be an example of a reason to have a separate dam, because you might not be able to store all your assets in the same system. But I think as we move through the phases here, I think having a system that is more object-oriented, more parent-child and sibling capable of managing complicated relationships, that's the type of system that you're going to need to be successful in a multilingual environment, so that you're able to, and then the most successful ones are the ones that allow you to provide some real granular rules around those languages that need to be managed as special cases. So it's not an easy challenge, but the good news is that in today's day and age, there are, again, not all, but there are many dams out there that were fundamentally built to help you manage complex language requirements, and that's a good thing. So the key is finding the dam that is the good fit for you. All right, we're a little bit over time, but I'll answer one more question here. By adding narrative text to the dam to manage, that seems to blur the line between a dam and a web content management system. Is a dam really capable of handling what a web content management system traditionally does today? So, great question, Scott. It's not an omni-channel content platform, or a dam as an omni-channel content platform is not going to solve, it's not going to do everything a web content management system is going to do, especially on the publishing side. It is a little bit similar to what you might get from like a headless dam, a headless CMS, where your content might be managed in a way that then hands off to another system that does the delivery. And it's, when I showed that graphic where we see the dam vendors kind of having a head start of being your OCP, the web content management vendors are also trying to compete for that, particularly those headless vendors. Those headless web CMSs are very much in a race to be your OCP. So I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know who's going to ultimately win that battle to be your OCP. And we're seeing traction from marketing automation vendors and CRM vendors and other vendors, other native OCP apps that are coming to market as well. But again, where I sit here today in 2020, I feel like dam vendors have a head start. We'll see what happens, but this is a fluid space. But I think the concepts are not fluid. This is really happening, and this is a real trend. And again, some of the most sophisticated companies in the world are really thinking about assets, content, and core data as the building blocks to experiences, and treating them as such, and making them foundational elements in your marketing stack. So with that said, I just want to thank you all again for joining me today. I appreciate it. Someday we'll do this in person down the road, hopefully. But thank you all for your participation. Again, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or if you want me to clarify anything, or if you want to see a demo of the research or the tools, just let us know. Thank you all. Have a great, wonderful day.